Hey y'all, this is Cindy. I'm the Tireless Tangler. Thank you so much for being with me today. You have arrived at a video in our series on Zentangle Dingbatz. Our projects are based on the book by Brian Crimmins, CZT. It is called Zentangle Dingbatz, and it is full of such wonderful ideas. I hope you guys can catch it. It is on Amazon, and I will leave a link in the description below, and you can go snatch you a copy. Definitely worth it. All right. So yesterday we talked about some of the design qualities that you want to consider, and we did a practice tile. Now, in the book, Brian suggests practicing several different shapes and sizes of dingbats, and he also suggests doing tile practice with each type that you do, and I think that is a really good idea. Let me show you something that I was working on earlier today. All right, so I was playing on an envelope earlier, and I wanted to know a couple of things. This is regarding the surface. This is a Hallmark envelope, right? And so I wanted to draw on it with my Micron, my Pigma Micron 01, because I wanted to know how it was going to respond to the pen. Actually, I used a 005 in blue on this, but I wanted to know how the ink would work with the paper, because this is not a paper that I've drawn on before. So I sort of wanted to figure that out. I tried some water-based color here with varying degrees of success. I do like the shading on this, but overall I felt this design was a little too big for the envelope, and I felt like these flowers were a bit much. I think I would have liked it better with simply this on it, but something like this without this would also be really pretty. So let's talk about envelopes today and do a project. So I went to the store and I just bought a set of, well, I actually got two sets. I got one set of things that I can use for birthday invitations for my kiddo next month, and as well I got some thank you cards. I wanted to see what kind of variety there was in the paper. This is also Hallmark, and I actually expected this paper, I don't know if you can tell, but it's all glittery. I actually expected this paper to be a little bit thicker, but this is fairly cheap, or at least it's lightweight, and so we're going to use it and see how this comes out. Now, in Brian's book, he talks about before you put your pen to the paper, you want to do some sketching on your envelope and sort of decide how you want to approach it. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to sketch in where I think I would like to put my design. Okay, so here is my envelope, and I want to figure out what I'm going to do. Now, if I'm going to use these for birthday invitations, I'm going to want to do something simple on the front so that I can sort of decorate this in a way, and this is for a boy, so I don't want to be too frilly or fun or girly on this. So I'm going to leave the flowers out, and I think I love that Oy Bay tangle, and I think maybe I will put that in a little bit smaller version across the bottom. And so what I want to do first is sort of sketch where I'm going to put my address in, and that's going to be about there, and it's a straightish line as always with me. Okay, it's a little better. All right, so now at the bottom I want to put this Oy Bay tangle that we did on Tuesday, on the video on Tuesday. And so I'm going to, and since I want it a little bit smaller size than what I did here, I'm going to go ahead and sketch 2 pencil lines in here. that's going to be the border, the up and down border for this tangle. Now this is, the pencil lines on this are going to disappear right into the tangling, so it's not going to matter. I probably will erase this up here unless I draw in some lines or something. But one of the things that Brian really stresses in the book is the less is more thing. He gave a really good explanation about this, talking about if you put a single design element on something and then put lettering in there, that the person will look at the letters first and then probably not even pay any attention or much attention to the design with it, and will go ahead and open and read it. But that if you put a simple single design on it and then leave the lettering out and that kind of thing, then it's much more of a focal point, and the design is much more of something that people will notice. So I think that's really, really good advice. So I'm going to use my 01 micron in black, okay? And I'm going to try to start putting supply links in the description. Sometimes I remember them and sometimes I don't. So, all right. So the Tangle Oibe is really cool. It's by Antonin Koval. And thank you for your comment, Antonin. She said it is oysters. The inspiration for this was I think she said flatbed oysters or something. I'm not sure, but she left the comment on the three tangle video from Tuesday. So Oibe, you just want to start with a nice open wavy line and just finish it off when you run out of space, okay? And then we're going to put in some echo lines. Let's see if I can. All right, so I'm going to add some echo lines, starting at the bottom, and very gently drawing them up to the top. Consistency in your line as far as width is what you want to go for. That, of course, is an issue with me, but I'm going to keep after it. And I'll come back in when I'm finished sketching this in, drawing this in, and do my line weight. And you want to put a slight curve in it. Now, while I'm drawing this in, I want to mention a couple of things. If at all possible, you want to practice on one of your envelopes before you get to your final design. These are very different. At least these that I'm drawing on are very different than a tile, of course, or even copy paper. They're pretty slick as far as the tooth of the paper goes. There's not a whole lot of tooth there. And so it does take some practice to sort of get familiar with your surface. And so, you know, don't feel bad about that. That's a good idea to sort of take an extra envelope and practice if at all possible. Now, thankfully, this is a very forgiving tangle. It's going to look cool, whether I have it drawn in perfectly or not. And I find that most tangles are like that. And I really like this one. I really like echo lines. They're very soothing for me. Oops. I didn't leave very much room for my little orb there. Okay, we'll fix that. We'll fix that in post-production, right? Oops. Well, I don't seem to be shaking as much today, but I also am doing wiggly stuff anyway, so that's okay. This is such a fun project. I have had so many great ideas since I started reading Brian's book. And so if you don't have it, it is definitely worth the, what is it, $13 to $15, something like that, in US money. And it is excellent. It is definitely worth the money. You get a lot of value for that 15 bucks. Okay, now I'm going to add my line weight and rounding and sort of fix up some of my stray lines. And now you can see why this penciled line helps so much, right? You know where you need to stop on these, and you know where your bottom is, and it helps keep everything nice and even. Planning what you do ahead of time is going to be really important on this. And in each of these dingbats, in these situations, there is some planning involved, and that's okay. When you stray away from classic Zentangle, where there are, no mistakes, and that of course still applies, but when you stray away and get into this area, which is going to be considered Zentangle inspired art, or a Zia type of a thing, then there is more planning, and that is one reason why this is not classic Zentangle. It's because of the planning portion, and because the planning part really distracts from the Zen part. So that's why it's not involved in classic Zentangle. That said, this is an awesome little little thing that they came up with, the Dingbatz. I'm telling you, there is such creative energy at Zentangle HQ. Between, Rick's monk thing and music, and Maria's fantastic whimsy and love of everything. I mean, that woman is just she is such a joy to be around. She is so positive and lovely, and gosh, we have been very lucky to have been blessed by them. And at least that's how I feel about mine. Almost finished here. Okay. And so when you in particular this tangle like this. It really is nice for hiding stray pin marks and that kind of thing, which, as you know, is something that I really appreciate about a pattern. My ability to use it to mask my problems. And that's a self-criticism that I am working on. It's something I work on every day, to be less critical of myself. I mean, other people can do their thing, and I am just as positive as I can be that they are awesome, and they are. But for some reason, I can't cut myself that same slack. Okay, so I'm going to start these. Let's see, do I have any over? I'm going to pick the one that probably is the highest, and I'm going to go from there. And I'm going to try to draw a straight line across and sort of hit all of the tops here. There. It's fairly good, right? Okay. Let's do the last step and put the lines in. We're going to shade it and see how it comes out. And of course, these lines can be as densely packed or as loose as you like them to be. It gives you a slightly different look if you pack them and they're really thin. If you put them in very thinly instead of with a little air here like I'm doing. Oops. All right, Cindy, deep breath. All right. Finishing up. Okay. A few more sections, and you'll notice here I put a couple of sparkles in just for a little bit of interest here. I really do like the sparkles in there, so I'm going to keep doing that. And a sparkle is just a blank space in an otherwise drawn or blacked area that is left blank. So in this case, I've just left a little spot in my lines that's free of ink. And look at the cool interest that it brings to this. Okay. All right. Well, I do like the way this turned out. Let's shade it and see what happens. Now, this is the other thing with working on envelopes that's going to be different. You need to practice shading on the envelope surface because it's very different from shading otherwise in other places. Okay, now let's shade this and see what we come up with. So I'm going to shade right on the outside to one side of these little waves, if you will. And because I practiced on this surface before, I know that I'm going to need a tiny bit more graphite than I would usually use. And for me, that's saying a lot. because I am a graphite happy girl. And graphite, by the way, for those who are beginning and don't know, is just what you call the stuff that makes the in a pencil that makes the gray, makes it right, basically. It's called graphite. You don't put lead in them anymore, so you can't see my pencil lead. There, my age showed. All right. So in addition to shading on this one side of the waves, on this, I'm also going to add some shading up at the top and a little bit at the bottom where the line weight is. Oops, I forgot to go across there, but I'll get it. So I'm going to go in like this, just add some graphite to the tops. And again, I try not to put my graphite over the black because of the shiny quality that it makes. But of course, I'm not sweating it either. I'm definitely getting some in here. All right. So I'm going to shade these as if they were a sphere, so rounded, okay? And we will see what we come up with. All right. If you use a pencil a lot, like in this situation, and you feel your point is getting dull on one side, just shift your pencil around a quarter of the way, and you will have a new side to work on. And I'm also going to add graphite. Probably going to regret putting that much down, but I'm going to also lay down some graphite along the bottom of this. And when we do that, and I may or may not use my charcoal pencil, my white charcoal pencil, for the highlight here, it's going to give it a really cool effect. I think you guys will like. Oops, did not mean to do that. That's what my Tombow Mono Zero eraser is for, taking out those little whoopses. And by shading it along the top and the bottom, then we're going to cause that to look rounded. All right. Okay, let's get the tortillon out and see how this looks. I really love this pattern. It is so cute. It is so nice for borders or edges or whatever. It's really awesome. It's easy to draw, and the end result looks so cool. And so by adding this little bit of graphite right here on the one side, look at how that lifts up the little shapes, little sort of snaily shapes. Somebody, my aide was here today, and she said it looks like a snail. It's very, for some reason when you look at this, you just think sea, right? Just think ocean or water or something like that. And that's cool. It's cool when a pattern can evoke a strong memory or feeling about a place. And one more over here. And the same is true, by the way, for the pencil, is true of the tortillon. When you start feeling on your tortillon that one side is just slick and it's not picking up your graphite, then turn it a quarter like that, and you're good to go on the other side. Now I will tell you that blending is a lot harder on the slick surface. You would think that it being slick would make it easier. It really doesn't. It is hard to drag the graphite where you want it to be. So you're constantly having to turn your tortillon. It's one of the reasons I went in and used a little extra, because because it's hard to move it, and so you kind of need a lot to work with. All right, so I like that. I'm probably going to lift a little bit of the graphite out here in the middle so that we've got a good strong highlight, but I really like this effect. I will also tell you that having used some water-based markers on this paper, this particular paper anyway, it did not take it very well. If you try to use something water-based on there, you're going to want to use as little as possible. I tried both without my aqua brush and with, and it definitely, it will spread with difficulty, but the paper pills up almost immediately. So be aware of that and go easy. Now, with the tortillon and the pencil stuff, you sort of have to really rub in there to get it to get the graphite to smooth out. And again, if this surface had a little bit more tooth or a little bit more roughness, then I think the shading would be much easier. I'm just going to blend out that pencil line just a little bit. All right, so now this is what we have. I got a little dark on there, but with my little eraser, my Tombow Mono Zero, I'm going to run along this bottom border and sort of take any stray stuff out. And I'm also going to come in here in the middle and strengthen my highlighted areas where I've got a little too much graphite. So this was my end result. I'm not going to mess with erasing right now. The other thing you can do, and I don't recommend these charcoal pencils that I have. The general pencils that Zentangle uses are much, much better quality. But you can put in some white charcoal here, if I could get this to work. And sort of thank you, Simba. Karma, Simba says hi. Anyway, you can use the charcoal to sort of accentuate your highlight there. But on this paper, it doesn't really show very much, so, you know, limited success. But again, the paper you're using is really a big consideration, okay? Now, in the less is more sort of category, I think that I'm going to leave this design as is here on the front, and then I'll take out the eraser later. But then on the back, what are we going to do? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 areas here, possibly more if you wanted to get into the underside, but that would be just tangling the envelope and not really dingbats. So we have some options here. We can do something around here and decorate. We could put in a triangle pattern. The problem is that this is embossed right here with the hallmark symbol. And so I don't know if I just want to leave this blank. And because of what I'm planning on the rest of this, I think leaving this blank is going to be the best choice. Now I'm going to follow an example that Brian has in his book. Let me see if I can put my finger on it really quickly and show you this. Let's see. I love this. I just love it. And so I'm going to do something similar on the back of this and really make it organic looking. And gosh, I am so inspired by looking at his examples. That's crazy. All right, so if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to want to put in a border line, basically a line that's going to define my edges. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to leave a little bit of space like Brian did on his example. And I'm not going to put any sharp edges. At least I'm going to try not to. And so I'm just going to join this up. Remembering to accentuate with the variable line weight. All right. So that's one of my sections, and I'm going to do that again on these two. Now these edges aren't quite as rounded as I would like, but they'll still work, right? Once we get all that in there, nobody is going to notice that. So let's do another one. And remembering to vary your line weight, basically lighten your pressure until you have a couple of places where there's a few gaps. All right. Susan Reynolds told me my example yesterday looked deckled around the edges, which was the nicest compliment I've gotten in a while. So, all right. Now, I am trying to decide here between something like Weifel Power or Tomas Padrosa's Chorus, or if I just want to do the, I don't know if it's called Worms or Tunnel or something like that, I don't know, but the one that Brian used in his example was really cool too. So, I think I'm going to use Weifel Power. There's not too much thinking that goes on in there. So Weifel Power starts with a dot grid.
Are you saying Eiffel Tower?
Now I'm going to stay, I'm going to stay right here in this area and try to keep my dots all lined up. Mostly. And then skip. And then I add in my side, any side stuff that I need. Okay. Well, let's give this a try and see if we can work it. Okay, now this starts with some open C shapes. and make that to the outside of the dots. So the dots are inside like a little, so it looks like a little pig's nose. I know, don't start with me. So we want to go from inside here to the tip here. Like that. And repeat it both ways. And then we're going to continue that. And if it's wonky, don't worry about it. Okay. I am very tempted to leave this plain, and I think I'm going to do that. Until we have the rest of these filled in. But isn't this pretty? I love it. All right, we are time-lapsing this. Well, these are a little bigger than these, but I think overall I love the effect of this. Once I get it shaded, it's going to be awesome. All right. So I have one envelope ready, except for shading on the back. I will take my eraser and remove this line, and then I'll be ready to address this and let it go. This is our first envelope. You may decorate as you will. We are going to do another one tomorrow. Mine are both the same shape on the back. So I'm going to look for something completely different to do tomorrow. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with me today. I know this was a long video, but I am hopeful that this will give you some ideas on how to approach your envelopes. Remember to take your time. Remember to practice on this surface, as it is quite a bit different than drawing on other paper. And I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.